Welcome to the first episode of the Seed of Life Reiki podcast. This is your host, Linda Giangregorio, and joining us today is my dear friend, Jennifer Henkle. She is the owner of Highest Source Healing. She is a certified breathwork and Reiki master. Both practices have transformed her life and inspired her to share with others the same feeling of fulfillment and strength that she receives from those practices. She utilizes breathwork and Reiki healing to boost confidence, self-image, and self-esteem. Through these healing modalities, she helps her clients to process emotions, gain clarity, and create feelings of openness. It is her intent to guide her clients to the most powerful version of themselves. In this first episode, we are going to be talking about how to live a life aligned with your highest self. So keep listening to learn more, and remember to subscribe to the show if you enjoy this episode. So without further ado, Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, Linda. I'm so good. Happy to be here with you this morning.
Thank you so much. I am absolutely thrilled that you said yes for one. And what I'm hoping to get out of this is the same genuine love and encouragement that we give each other when we talk on the phone all the time, you know? So
Yes, I agree.
I know. I feel like, and we've said this before, that we have the best conversations. And so now finally we're recording them.
We're letting the public in on this one today, Linda.
I know, right? So buckle up, guys, because it's going to be a wild one. So I thought that I would start off by letting you kind of tell everybody how you met me, how you got to this space. And yeah, we'll start there.
Sure. So I am a mother of 2 kids, married, and I live in Orange, California. And, I was a school teacher, took some time off to raise my young kids, and life was just life until we had a very unexpected turn of events. My daughter, at the age of 5, had an emergency brain surgery. And as you can imagine, that totally took us off like the regular day-to-day life. It was traumatizing. Before I go any further in this story, I want to let everybody know she is fully recovered. You would never know it happened. And even though they can't say this in the medical world, it is a miracle that she has made the full recovery. So in experiencing that, it was a lot for my husband and I to process. We almost lost her. We didn't know if she would be the same, and all the things that you can imagine that go on with such an extreme situation. So I needed to process. I began going to therapy, and in doing so, there was a component that I found that just wasn't getting addressed. And it was everything that I was holding in my body. I was holding fear. I was holding anxiety. There was the trauma from this incident happening and rocking the world of my family. And that's when I was first introduced to Reiki and breathwork. I had never experienced those healing modalities before. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, Linda, we were not just addressing my incident with Emma when I finally started to delve into those practices. Mm-hmm. I found that I had held some lifelong trauma in my body, and there's big T and little t trauma, as we know. Yep. And once I started incorporating somatic practices into my day-to-day world, it was a game changer. It was a game changer. And I then came to realize that talk therapy is amazing, and I'm a big proponent of it, but we need to address mind, body, and spirit. And I continued on with my practice, and it was helping change my life so much. I knew I had to get trained, certified, and start sharing this with many other women. So this led me to you. I found myself searching for a Reiki master. And I recall, like as clear as day, I had, a girlfriend tell me, I didn't know what I was going to do with it per se, but she said, it just might be the people you meet on the way. You're curious, follow your curiosity. And as I was searching, I came across you, Seed of Life Reiki, and I just connected with your energy immediately. And I just knew you were the right one for me. And I reached out, and sure enough, you're asking me all about my needs and what, even down to what food I want and what kind of dietary restrictions. And I'm like, oh, she's a lover. She's going to take good care of me, and I could use that kind of loving.
Absolutely.
And but I did not know when I said yes to that certification with you, how much more I was going to get than a certification in Reiki. I have developed a lifelong relationship with you, my Reiki sisters, and my life's never been the same since saying yes to getting trained and certified in both Reiki and breathwork.
Yep.
And that's what's led me to here today.
I love that. So I know. I say every day how blessed I am to do what I do and to meet women like you. Yeah. So tell everybody, after learning Reiki, what made you want to go learn breathwork? Because I know you learned it after mine, right? Or did you learn it before?
Correct. After.
Okay.
So I had already been exposed to breathwork as well, and it had become a regular practice of mine. And I find Reiki and breathwork complement each other so beautifully. I optimize everybody's chakras when I'm doing the Reiki work, but to really move about deep-seated trauma and anxiety and grief, I found breathwork was best for that. But I've put the two together to really hold the women that I work with. And I wanted to be able to give them a complete somatic healing experience that I hadn't seen put together before. I kept dipping into Reiki, kept dipping into breath work, and it was like, wouldn't it be great to experience this together? So I created that practice for my clients.
Oh, I love it. And it's been, what, a year plus at this point?
Well, we're over 2 years. We're headed towards 3.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Where does the time go? Oh my gosh. Okay, so we decided together that our topic was going to be how to live a life aligned with your highest self. And I can say for me that in the beginning of my journey, those weren't even like ideas in my head that was a reality. I feel like a lot of people want to know exactly what your highest self is. For me, that means your spirit and your soul. What does it mean for you?
For me, it means when my ego is no longer in the equation.
Beautiful. Yeah. Do you remember in our master training when we learned about how to integrate the ego into our spirit so that we can access the positive aspects of the ego?
Correct, I do. And I thought that was such a unique concept because we're always taught get rid of ego, get rid of ego. But in that journey with you, on that certification retreat with you, it was like an aha moment. And it's like you don't have to completely abandon the ego because the ego points to where you still need healing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like if you are embodying your highest self, that means that you are accepting all the different parts of yourself. And we have an ego for a reason.
That we do.
I know, right? So before we were recording this episode, you had mentioned to me that you kind of had like a full circle moment where, so for people a little back context, we were going to record this a couple weeks ago and the timing just wasn't right for either of us. And we are both big proponents of trusting the signs, following the intuitions and the nudges and things like that, because those are examples of living from your highest self when you are tuned into that versus tuned into the word that comes to mind is like the frenetic energy of the mind that's constantly telling us to do this, or this. So if you want to open up a little bit and share about that experience, what changed so that we could be ready for you?
Sure. So a little backstory here. I have had a very, let's say, complex situation having to deal with a best friend of mine. And it got further complicated when it started to weave into family life. And I will say today, this situation is a gift, and it has been my greatest teacher. But the amount of times this particular situation has brought me to my knees has been pretty intense.
Yep.
But what I want to share with you is I found myself from the very first point that this lesson appeared in my life, handling it different than 6 months prior to going on my first Reiki retreat with you. The first thing I noticed was I was confronted with a situation where to have moved forward and to have had absolutely no conflict, I would have had to let a little piece of me die, because I would have had to let some of my own integrity go. Now, possibly before starting this healing journey, I may have been okay with that, but something shifted and I knew I wasn't going to settle for letting my integrity melt away. And this, little did I know then, started what I like to say, one of the greatest tests. I think anytime we're really trying to up level in our spiritual life, our personal life, our healing life, we get tested. And I've learned that it can be a soft situation. It can be, okay, every time this keeps circling back to me, the same pattern, the same situation, what is my highest self coming around to teach me? Not what did I do wrong? Why is everything not going my way? But hey, there's an opportunity for growth here. Sure enough, I did not know the many different forms the same situation could take. And you and I have talked about them in great length multiple times. And I'm so grateful for your support, Linda. You're always there for me. and really, if I hadn't met women like you, if I hadn't had a strong spiritual practice, I don't think I'd have the same end result that I have today, standing, talking to you on this call, which is that I want to share with everyone one thing that can happen when you're confronted with this same pattern that just doesn't seem to go away and it keeps coming back. I was about ready to tap into old behavior, which would have been, okay, I must be guilty here. I must be guilty in this.
Right.
It must be mine to fix. If I could just, fix it and own up that I had a part and it's my fault, it would go away. And I sat in that for a while and it was yucky. And I remember talking to you one day and I said, you know what, Linda, that's old behavior. My side of the street is clean in this situation. And that's just me doing what I always did growing up, thinking I had a part, thinking there's definitely, don't get me wrong, there's definitely situations in my life where I do have a part and that's different. But I had gained the awareness to know this was not it. And so I said, it's okay. This just gets to be a yucky situation. And what happened that you're referring to is it's like the situation had come full circle. It got as much in my face as it possibly could. And what was different is this time I didn't feel it in my gut. It didn't bring me to my knees. What happened was I had done so much work. I was detached, but detached with love. I was able to view the situation and I wasn't enmeshed with it for the first time. I had done enough work that I just thought this was just actually a beautiful way for me to learn how to set boundaries in my life, to realize my self-worth, and to realize that I had old patterns that weren't serving me anymore, that worked well when I was growing up, but I'm trying to live a life of joy, not a life of survival anymore. So that all came to a head right after our initial scheduled podcast recording. And I said to you, you might have been talking to a different person. I finally got to see, because Linda's been on the journey with me and she knows all the details behind the situation. And this probably started, Linda, 2 years or so ago. And it keeps showing up. And I believe you taught me, what am I doing that keeps attracting this type of situation? And you gave me that thought that, okay, I've got to start looking at myself and what I'm putting out to the universe. What do I think I deserve? How am I going to show up in this situation? How am I going to do things differently? Because I don't want this to keep coming back. And I will say that every time it came back, though, I got to use it as an opportunity for growth. And I'm going to ask you to share with everyone. I believe it was a Louise Hay quote you shared with me about this situation. Everything about the situation can only be for my highest and greatest good. Do you recall?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, what I like to say for myself and what I like to share with all of my girls, girls meaning my students who I've taught Reiki to, is that everything is working out for my highest and best good. From this situation, only good will come and I am free. And the amount of times that I have used that, I can't even tell you. But it's been a game changer for me because it pulls us out of the victim mentality, right? Which I feel like the majority of us, that's kind of where we lie. That's like our baseline, but we don't realize it, you know?
We're in it. It's not until, like I shared with you, you can kind of look at the situation from a detached place with love. And then you have more choices. You have choices because you're not limited to any sort of mentality. And I remember when you shared that with me, Linda, I remember where I was when you shared that quote. I wrote it down immediately. And that was the first big shift I started to feel when I was encountering the situation. It gave me so much freedom, so much hope that again, it started to pull me out of it. So I could, instead of looking as it's happening to me, it's happening for me.
Right, exactly. And I know, because I've had this conversation a lot over probably the last 15 years about how that is such a hard concept for people to grasp, right? Because there isn't blame in ourselves, but I fully believe that as part of the growth process, there are going to be people and situations that come so that we can learn to love ourselves deeper and learn to love others deeper. But that can be triggering for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's easier to sit in the victim mindset and go, woe is me, than it is to turn it around and go, okay, well, what role do I play in this? And then how can I give myself compassion and love for the part of me that wants to play that role? Do you know what I mean?
Said. Yes. And honestly, it's these types of situations that move us. You know, if I wasn't made to be so uncomfortable, I would have never moved. I would have never gotten to a better space within myself. I feel this situation, like you just said it beautifully, helped me embrace all parts of myself. There was a time when I told you, assuming the guilt, that worked for me growing up. It was easy to accept the guilt for the conflict that would take place in the home, so then I could fix it and feel better. And that served me. But what serves us at one point in our life, we outgrow it at some point. And the struggle is when we keep trying to apply it to all situations, it doesn't feel so good when you've outgrown that place.
I know. And it's funny because life will really make that so apparent. And once you kind of wake up to that, I always say it gets easier the more you practice it, right? The more that you can give yourself that compassion. I don't know. I sound like a broken record, but I say it all the time because the self-love conversation is amazing. But if you can't start with compassion for yourself, then you can't give yourself love. And each of those little things that happen are nudges from our higher self. It's just, do you want to be aware of them or do you not want to be aware of them? And I always say, because I love to come from a non-judgment aspect, that it's okay if you don't come from that space. I feel like we're given the opportunities and you can choose to take them or choose to not take them, and you'll be okay either way. Obviously, life has a crisper, clearer, funner, more passion, more joy when you do choose to live from your higher self, less stress, less suffering, all of those things. But there are going to be people that just aren't ready for that. And I always say, well, just start where you're at.
I actually can look back now in a situation that I wouldn't have wished on anyone. And I actually feel blessed to have walked through it, because the amount of right?
Yeah. No,
The amount of
same.
lessons. And you know what it was like? It's like exactly what you said, Linda. I will tell you what happened in this most recent situation that was 2 years ago. It was nicely packed with lifelong lessons for me, things that I had been trying to work through and heal on my own for so long. And I feel like God, the universe was like, here you go. You're at a place in your journey where you're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things that you
Yep.
you've been given the chance to heal with that you weren't quite there for before, it's going to come now. And it's going to be over a period of 2 years. And it's going to address not just the situation at hand, but we're going to tap into stuff from all different areas, all different arenas of your life. And, you know, it couldn't have happened to me at a better time because I had done the work this time around where I was
exactly.
ready. And I had people in my life that could walk me through it because we don't do this kind of stuff alone. We do not do this without community. We do not do it without our healing practices.
Yep.
We don't do it without our people. You know, I mean, this is not, we don't walk through any of these big deals alone.
Yeah, no, I know. And I'm so grateful that we don't have to do it alone. I know that there are people out there that don't have that community, but that I think is what I'm trying to set up. And I know what you're trying to set up so that we can call in all of those women who need that community. For me, very specifically, getting a cancer diagnosis completely changed my entire life on every level. And then, unbeknownst to me, choosing to teach Reiki did the same exact thing. Just each one had their little lessons and the little nuances. And I love where I'm at because I can take all of that growth and all of those lessons and share my wisdom with other women who are at the beginning of the journey. You know, it just, I don't know, it's just a game changer when you can flip everything around and you're not struggling or suffering anymore. I used to put up things on my wall that said, welcome to the other side. And it was like a tunnel because in the beginning of any situation that's so intense, you don't know if you're getting out of it. It always feels so all encompassing. And then you're out of it. And I specifically have had to learn how to not go back into that tunnel over and over and over again.
And the greatest gift is, Linda, you taking, I can't even imagine your walk with cancer. You've shared that with me, and how you've taken one of the most trying times in your life and turned it around and made it your greatest asset, and then have used everything you've gained through that walk and shared it to touch and better so many other women's lives, mine included. I think that's like what it's all about when we turn our assets, right? We turn our darkest moments into our greatest assets. And I believe that's the whole reason they come to us in the first place, because we are going to shed the light and light the way for a woman that hasn't walked through it yet.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And show them that it is possible to live a life aligned with your highest self, like we were saying. So with that in mind, what are, say, your top 3 things that in the moment kind of give you that nudge that, oh, I have an opportunity right now to align myself with my highest self? What do you do to get yourself into that mode?
Let me see if I'm understanding the question. When I feel myself maybe being triggered, are you saying? And I have to, okay. Yeah. So, all right. When I find myself triggered, I've learned, for me, I don't act in that moment. I do not react. I have learned I have to respond, not react. And the first thing I do is I tell myself, when I don't know what to do, I don't do anything. Right there, it takes any action, right? Any action that would be more of a reaction off the table for me. Because usually when we're triggered, I don't know about you, but when I am triggered, I just start to feel it in my chest, in my body. And I'm not thinking like, oh, I've got the greatest response right now. I think, oh, I've got the greatest reaction right now. Right? Right? Exactly.
Yeah. Fight or flight.
Man, don't operate from that place. So I go to, okay, I don't know what to do here. I know I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to do here, so I'm not going to do anything. And then I move from that place and I give myself grace. I give myself time. I learned that I don't owe anybody a quick response. And I take time. And when I take that time, I dive into my healing practices, and my go-tos, like I've already shared with you, are I go into my breathwork practice, my Reiki practice. Exercise is another big one for me. I have to move. I think best when I'm moving and I feel good about myself. And I've learned I have to get quiet. That one doesn't come as easy to me, but I have to get quiet and still and sit with it and sit with the uncomfortableness. You know, I used to want to just act because I thought it was going to take me out of that uncomfortable, like sticky space. But I've learned, you know what? That's my greatest teacher right there when it's uncomfortable. What is, there's possibly that ego, right? Showing me, where do I need to look? Why am I triggered? What is this bringing up for me? Right. And then from there, I have choices. I have choices that I get to make. And, you know, that's just come with time. And I just, the longer I go on this path, on this healing journey, I feel like I earn another second between that pause. Like each time, you know, you earn another second as you go further on your journey before you're going to react. You know, you respond. You get the pause. The pause comes with the work. We don't all have that pause, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I know. I feel like for me, when I'm in those moments, I have learned to comfort myself in the midst of other people because, you know, usually you're triggered around a bunch of people. Like if I'm at work or whatever and something is upsetting me, you have to figure out how to move on while still honoring how you feel. It's one of the hardest things, but for me, I fall back to my Reiki practice by just putting my hands on my heart and taking a breath. If I have to leave the room and go into the bathroom or whatever, you know, like I don't know how the bathroom became a sacred space, but
it is.
I'm sure other people can relate, especially if you have children or even significant others. It's like the one space where you know they will not bug you. And that's at work too, right? You're like, okay, this is good. I've got my 4 sacred walls right here, you know?
Touch, Linda. Like placing your hand on your heart, that'll regulate your body, your nervous system straight away. Just that touch.
Yeah, and so many of us don't even get that touch, let alone know how to give it to ourselves. That's one of those things of if you weren't raised that way, through no fault of your own, you have no clue how to do it. And that's why I love it, because it's like, no, I can show you how to do it. And in a really simple way too, right? Because it's very easy to get stuck in the story of things, feel an emotion, have a story attached to it. And in the background, our higher self, our soul, our spirit are going, no, look over here, because this is not it. It's like, if you don't have any clue how to detach from that story and not become that story, because a lot of our identification of who we are when we say I is the story. It's not necessarily our truth.
You're leading me to my breathwork practice, because when you breathe, and you know, Linda, you've done it with me, you've done it on your own. When you breathe like that, I always say you tap into this primal place. You find your voice, because you get underneath it all. You get underneath those stories you're describing. And it's this truth that I don't know how to tap into any other way, where I go back to who I was before everyone tried to tell me who to be. And the answers just come rushing in. And oftentimes that's one of the things you asked about. When I get triggered, I'll go right into my studio and I'll breathe. And I come out through the other side, and I can't help but feel different. Because we get that, like we talked about, the fight, the flight, that gets stuck in our body. We don't ever completely discharge that. And the only way I have found to discharge that is through breath work.
Yeah, no, I love it as well. I'm definitely a big fan of somatic therapies, breathing, chanting, all of the things that can I saw a thing the other day that was like, if
Well,
all you did was just shake it out, like you went somewhere and you just shook it out to just allow your body to
and
release the stress. At
I
the same
always go
time, it
back
eases your
to
mind,
women, we hold it in our bodies. We hold everything in our bodies. So the minute and
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't get like a lot of us go to therapy and it's beautiful. It helps you process it through the mind, but you're not addressing the
Mm-hmm.
body. And I feel like that is the biggest, that's what I see with the women that I
Yeah.
work with. When I start to tap into their body, a light goes on. It's an awareness goes on. It's very empowering too,
Mm-hmm.
because you're using a modality
Mm-hmm.
that they possess. We all have our breath. It's right underneath our nose and you can tap into it anytime. And so it's very empowering that you can get yourself to that state of self-esteem and tapping into your inner knowing and on your own. Like what a gift. And we don't even know we have it and we can access it. We just
Right.
have to be
Exactly.
shown. Game changer, right?
Mm,
All the
I know.
practices that you and I
Yep.
are talking about today
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
things that we we can do on our own that we're just not maybe taught or shown. And what a game changer when we are, and how empowering for us
Mm-hmm.
to know that we can tap into it, that we're our own powerhouses, right? And how
Exactly.
many
I know.
times do we find women that we become disembodied? I think it's the first thing we learn how to do when we are faced with traumas. We learn how to detach our bodies, leave our bodies, right? We check out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
because it's
right?
not safe.
No,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
And
And
so,
you don't have anybody there telling you a different way. And the crazy thing is this happens from like a year old, if not lower.
yeah,
It's insane, and parents just don't realize it. I mean, our parents definitely didn't realize it.
they didn't even have the vocabulary for it, right?
Oh
The
God, no, it
awareness
didn't
of
even
it.
exist.
I know, no. And it's just
I
like,
know.
I think that's the first thing that gets taken away from women is their bodies. And when you give them the key and show them how to work with
Oh
it
yeah.
and give it back to them, it's mind blowing. It's the most empowering thing. And then you
Mm-hmm.
add in what
Yeah.
you and I share about. We both got crystals in
Yep.
pockets, right? Our pockets right now, right? You add in ritual, which I think is beautiful,
Yep.
right? That whole use
Little
your oils,
tools.
use your crystals, use your oracle
Yep.
cards. Get connected, get tapped in.
Yeah. Exactly. I heard a thing a couple of months ago that said that if you can't calm your central nervous system first, you'll never actually learn how to feel better in those stressful moments, because it starts with your body first. That's why I love Reiki, why I love breathwork, because they remove the stories from your body, from your mind, from that rat wheel that says you have to focus on this to be better. It's a weird phenomenon that I found, that you literally feel safer in situations
Yes.
that from the outside look unsafe. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so weird how we unconsciously do that. And then there is a moment, I'm sure you've noticed this. There is a moment where when you are shown, told, and experience how to live from your highest self, from that part of you that knows that you're perfect, you get scared.
It's
And a lot of us pull
it's
away.
uncomfortable.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
Have
like
you experienced that?
it's a new way of moving about.
Yeah.
Like I shared with you earlier, I wanted to, when I was walking through it with
Yep.
that situation I shared, I wanted to revert back to, wait a minute, isn't it just easier if it's my fault, if I'm the guilty one? Because then I can make it better. And that cropped up, right? It cropped up, and I like went for it
Exactly.
for a moment for comfort,
Yep.
even though it didn't serve me. And it was like, but I had outgrown it this time. I couldn't see it through. I had enough shifts that I couldn't see it through. But
Yeah.
that's exactly to your point, Linda. It's right there all the time. You get scared and you have the opportunity. Are you going to move forward in the way that you know is better for you, or are you going to go back to what you've always done? And sometimes we do regress. Sometimes we revert back. That's life.
Oh, 1,000%. I think it's, I think it's forward and backwards constantly, especially because I haven't reached enlightenment. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting up there like Buddha, knowing all the things and feeling all the things and not being triggered whatsoever. I'm still a human being and I want to live this human life. And part of that is knowing you are going to be pulled back, but that's okay. Because I always like to say that situations come up, it means from your highest self that you are ready to handle them. We don't get presented with things that we can't handle. And I know that's like such an old school saying, but it's absolutely true in my experience.
And every time I hear you say that, it just calms me, right? It's like it would have never entered my realm if I wasn't ready for it. Just knowing that alone gives you the time and space to know, okay, I can walk through this and I can grow from it.
Yeah, and you can do the funny thing is, and I this is starting to be said more, but you can exist in fear and in joy at the same time. They technically do coexist because that fear doesn't ever fully go away. So you do have to kind of take that first brave step and know that, okay, well, back there is the fear, but I'm going to move forward anyways and quote unquote love it and bring it along with me until it decides that it needs to go. Do you know what I mean? The dichotomy of this experience of life is definitely not black and white, and it's definitely not a, hey, you're here and you're wrong for being here, and so now you need to drop all of it so that you can be over in this better feeling space. We technically bring all of that along with us.
Oh, you're taking me back to my mom's wisdom. My mom, when I was walking through everything I shared about with my daughter, Emma, she would always tell me, Jennifer, joy and sorrow are two sisters that live in the same house.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I carry that. You can have both and don't think because you're in the sorrow, you can't have the joy.
Right, exactly.
I mean, how many times have another thing, I didn't know this was going to come up, but with my sister's passing, I'll never forget. I was outside hospice and I called a friend of mine saying, I'm so afraid to walk in there and see my sister in this way. And she shared with me, she said, first, look up the prayer of St. Francis, read that. And she said, Jennifer, don't miss the beauty there is in death and dying, right? Talk about two polar opposites feelings, but there was so much beauty and peace and witnessing my sister pass, which was also one of the hardest things I've walked through.
Yeah.
But we're such incredible beings. We can embody all those feelings at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And you're not good or bad or any of the labels that we put on it for just being that, existing. It was the same thing for me through my cancer chemo journey. I see so many people that are fuck cancer and, rah, rah, rah. And I just had so much emotional stuff that I had to work through that I couldn't really be that outward cheerleader, but it was really apparent that there was a part of me that had that and that expressed that. But at the same time, I was scared the entire time, but still kept moving forward.
When I met you, Linda, at the retreat, and you shared with me about your journey with cancer, what struck me the most was you were in such gratitude when you were sharing about it. It wasn't like you didn't seem resentful, bitter. You were in gratitude for what it taught you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really hard space to come from. I was talking about it with my boss actually the other day because we have so much PTSD from all of these crazy things that have happened, but I also have so much gratitude for it. And then the weird thing people don't talk about is survivor's guilt, but like that's an actual thing, especially because cancer is so prevalent now and so many people die from it that you kind of go, okay, well, why am I here and they're not here? I lost my father to cancer. So there's just so much wrapped up in all of that.
So many levels.
Yeah. And I just kept thinking, I was in my mid 30s. I don't want to die. I'm going to look it in the face and I'm going to figure out why this is happening to me. And that's how I can say it to all of you now that there is a deeper, bigger meaning for things. And also at the same time, as you mentioned, death is a beautiful thing as well. It's a really hard one for me still, but as an example, my dad, towards the end of his time, you could see that he was shifting in how he felt about things. Because, staring death in the face kind of really does a lot. And
No,
I
of
was
course.
too young to realize it, but looking back now, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. You kind of have to make peace with where you're at because you might not live from it. But I did, and that's why I'm so grateful for it, because I didn't, for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be the victim. Do you know what I mean? I easily could have done that, but I didn't want to do that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an honor for me to even help other women realize that they don't have to be a victim.
Well, that's one of the first biggest, I mean, you made many first big impressions on me, all of them good. But I knew when I mean, I remember during the certification retreat, I just hung by you. I just said, this woman is someone I can learn from. And you shared with me your cancer journey. And it was from such a place of like gratitude, and that what it came to teach you, you were not defeated. You came out strong. It was just all of that. I can't even put it into words, but
I know.
it did not go unnoticed by me. And I stood by you that whole retreat, and I knew you were a woman I wanted to be around, a woman I wanted in my circle, a woman I wanted to learn from, and have learned incredible amounts of things from. I tell you, I got so much more than a certificate. It's like,
I know. I
explain unless what you get when you say yes to things. Right?
Yeah, I know.
It's just
yeah, same.
It's a lot.
Same.
It just changes. Yeah, yeah.
I know it does. It's so funny. That's why I'm always like, just say yes. Just say yes. It's going to be okay. I said yes to teaching Reiki, and I had no clue what I was doing, and it took me a good couple of years to figure it out. But that saying that the more that it scares you, the more it's meant for you. That again is just those higher nudges. That's our higher self saying, hey, here's a little thing. Here's a little crumb if you want to take it. If not, that's fine. But here it is for you. And I promise you that the journey is going to be amazing. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be amazing. It's again that dichotomy thing where it's like, this is fucking hard. Like, this is a lot. It's not a light concept to want to grow and to evolve and to be the best version of yourself for yourself first, besides everybody else. It's funny because I know that if I follow those nudges, life just aligns in such an easy way. And I love to tell all of you guys that life is so much easier than we make it out to be because of all of the false messages and the false beliefs that we've been taught. None of that shit is true. Do you know what I mean? None of it. None of it's true. So it's like, okay, there is another side. There is another way that I can be. Well, let's try that out and see how it feels.
Well, we complicate the heck out of everything, right? It's like life is easy. We just complicate it ourselves. And when we get out of our own way, it's really taking the trust, not even trust. I want to say, like, when you get out of your own way and you trust in something, believe in something bigger than you. You have to have belief in something bigger than you, because, we only get shown 24 hours a day for a reason, right? Yeah. And anytime I think I'm going to control and manipulate those 24 hours to serve me, I sell myself short every time.
Oh, every time. I know.
It's when I get out of my own way, I'm blessed the most.
Yep, I know. Saw D. Simone. I found him on Instagram. He has this amazing saying that he says every day, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically just, it's kind of like that whole make me an instrument of your peace, Lord. It's that, right? It's I wish to serve others today, and I also wish that everybody on the planet, including those who we may look at as bad or wrong or evil or whatever, right? I wish peace for everyone on the planet without exception. And that includes myself in that conversation. Do you know what I mean? When he said that, I was like, oh my God, yes, because it's one thing to want it for ourselves, but it's another to want it for other people and do things to that end for other people. Because as we heal, other people heal as well without them even knowing it. That's what's so cool and amazing about this whole journey, is that we do get to unconsciously help other people heal, even if they don't know it.
And it's not, you think you're going to heal and then you have to go fix everybody else, but that's not it. It's by you healing yourself, just healing yourself. And you just said something I wanted to come back to. It was so profound, Linda, about It's really, it's really when you want good for others, right? You're moving away from
Yeah.
that scarcity mindset to the
Yep.
abundance mindset. When you are just, if someone else is doing good, there's not enough for me. Or when someone else is doing good, I can't move forward. That's scarcity, and that keeps us limited and it keeps us small. But when you realize
Yeah.
there's enough to go around for everyone, and if it's meant for you, it will never lose you. You will never miss out on it. It will never go to someone else if it's truly
Yeah.
meant for you. You can walk around with a lot more compassion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot more gratitude. But it's another
Mm-hmm.
shift that you have to move from
Yep.
scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I love the practices that we practice, right? Because especially like they talk about it more, as you know, in the higher levels of Reiki training,
Yes.
but everything that we are doing is shedding the light on our authentic self, which is the same thing as your higher self, highest self, all of those words that we use. It's the same thing. It's kind of like that onion analogy. You're just peeling away all of the falsities that aren't really who you are. And we are given these tools that show us who we are, who our truth is, what that looks like, what it feels like, how your life can, how your day-to-day life can look when you act as that versus act as this other image that we've created for ourselves. You know what I mean?
I do. I do.
Yeah. It's just fantastic. I don't know. There's no other way to say it because it's just, yeah, it's just better. It's just all around better. Wouldn't change a thing. Super
No.
grateful for all of it. Wouldn't change a thing. Yeah. So we're coming up on, let's see, what, about 50 minutes. We wanted to make this about an hour. I saw somebody else do this, actually, Colette Baron-Reed on her podcast at the end. So I thought that we would kind of close with like a fun question. Okay.
Sure.
So the question is, if you could have any supernatural power, what would it be and why?
Oh, man. Oh, man. All right. Let's think here. No pressure. At first, it was going to be to know things ahead of time, but hell no, I don't want that superpower.
Right? God, no.
God, no.
Me either.
No. Superpower. Oh, Linda, have you had time to think about this one? This would be the best one out there, but this is the one that I can think of in this moment, and that would be to be a speed reader. I'd surely like to be able to read really quickly and also retain it all. I might not be shooting for the stars with this one, but let me tell you, I would love to be a speed reader.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny, right?
What about you?
Get all of the info as quick as possible. I so like the one that always comes to my mind when we talk about this is time travel. I would love to be able to just teleport.
Be on vacation right now.
Because I know, right? Yeah, just because I want to see the world and all of that. But like, you know, time seems to just go so fast all the time that being able to, hey, I want to go here because I want to see this person or I want to do this experience, to just be able to go where you want to go.
Could you come stay a weekend with me in California right now?
Exactly.
I'm down for that. I grant you that superpower.
I know. That's what I mean, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. I just love it. Okay, so let's also kind of recap so that people have like a good takeaway at the end of this.
Sure.
What do we think are like the 3 things that they could start today that are super easy practices that, you know, that they don't have to come to you or I for teaching, that they could just do on their own, that will give them a glimpse of aligning with their highest self?
The first thing that comes to my mind is journal. And what I would journal is, what do you want your life to look like? And it's an exercise that I want you to start with. Where would you wake up? If you could wake up anywhere in the world, where would you wake up? What would it look like out the window where you wake up? What would you dress yourself in? I'm not talking if you had all the money, but I'm talking if you could wear any style. What would you adorn yourself in? Who would you talk to when you have that morning cup of coffee? If you did, how would you talk to yourself? Where would you go for your work? What would your work look like? Who would your home be filled with? And on, and take yourself through that day, write it all down, and then just see what happens over time. I've done an exercise like that, and it just got me into the idea of when you dream like that, when you put it into, it could be any possibility, which takes away fear and anything else. I think you start to tap into your highest self is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Your highest self knows what you want for yourself without limitations, without fear.
Right.
And then give it some time, and I bet you those things start coming for you. You might have to do some shifting, the shifting that Linda and I talked about, to be able to obtain it. But you're going to start seeing those opportunities come your way.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like to add on top of that while you're journaling the entire scenario, also write down how you feel, right? Because
you have to embody that.
Yes, the emotions are the catalyst for change. The emotions are the catalyst for movement in our lives, right? And we can picture all of these things, but it's how are you going to feel when you're doing all of those things? Not just what it's going to look like, but how are you going to feel? Because then you can go, oh, I can find that feeling. Do you know what I mean? And then once you find that feeling, in my experience, the pictures come so much quicker, right? Like the ideas and all the things.
Right. Because you can embody, maybe you're envisioning you're waking up on the ocean and you currently live in the desert, but you know what it feels like to wake up on the ocean. To your point, you can start embodying the feeling. And then when you're embodying the feeling of what you really want, you show the universe you're ready because you've embodied it. So
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Because it's one thing to think it all, but it's
another thing to feel it, to
feel it. Exactly. Yeah. Because if you're not feeling it, you're telling the universe that you're still in the situation or the space or whatever that you're not wanting to be. Do you know what I mean? Like that whole concept is such an interesting thing to me because my husband always says, how do you want without wanting? And I really think it is just need to get out of the concept of having to try to be one way or another. Just feel what you want to feel, honor where you're at, and everything aligns.
Yeah, that's it right there. Totally agree.
Exactly. Well, so I think we're going to call it right here. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Your support means the world. I just adore you. I want to make sure that everyone knows how to find you and how they can work with you.
Sure. And I too, Linda, am so grateful for our connection. And I just love watching you shine. Yes, if anything resonated for anyone today, I would love to continue a journey with you. You can find me on Instagram at Highest Source Healing. You can also find me on my website, highestsourcehealing.com. And I believe those are the two best ways to get started. And I'd be happy to support any of you on your journey.
Perfect. I want to extend a genuine thank you to those that have listened to this entire first episode. It means so much to me to be able to reach new people and to be a source of encouragement. If you've enjoyed this first episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and share with your friends. I send all my love to each of you. And till next time, I hope you have a great day.